right, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, welcome to another episode of our 30 Minute Swift series. This is a recurring webinar series that Downtown Spokane is putting on where we bring to you industry experts and local community leaders to talk about some of the more pressing topics of the day. So if you are unfamiliar with me, my name is Kevin Campbell, and I am the Downtown Spokane Partnerships Business Relations Coordinator. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Edie Rice-Sauer. Edie is our featured guest today. She's going to be talking about childcare. And just kind of diving into some of the struggles and issues surrounding it lately and how those have been having impacts both on a personal level for families at home, but as well as on the business side of things and how employees and employers have been having to navigate that those issues. So if you do have any questions during Edie's presentation, please feel free to put them into the chat box. And we will get to them once Edie has finished her prepared portion of the presentation. We'll open things up to a live Q&A where we can address those questions in the chat box, and you'll also have an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask any questions yourself. And lastly, we are recording this session as well, so if we will send you a video link in case you'd like to reference any of the material that is brought up today or pass this along to anyone else. So Edie, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to what you have to say. And if you are ready, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Thanks all for joining me. I recognize a couple of you. Kelly is on one of our committees, and I know Betsy, so nice to have you. I am going to divide this session into two parts. I'm going to take a little time at the beginning and just talk about more personal impacts of childcare issues and early learning. And then I won't take too much time there because I think the issue I want to share with you is really the business impact. Why is early learning, why is childcare so critical to businesses? So that's kind of the way I'll divide the session, and please send some questions on the chat room if you can. But let me tell you a little bit about myself and Transitions. I'm the executive director at Transitions. We're a local not-for-profit in Spokane. Our mission is to end poverty and homelessness for women and children here. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that through some housing programs. We have 2 transitional housing programs, one targeting women who are single and have been homeless. The other is targeting women and their children who have been homeless. And then we have our newest program is a permanent supportive housing program called the Home Yard Cottages. And those are 24 cottages. They're kind of forever homes. If somebody follows their lease, they can stay there as long as they want to, or unless they make too much money, and that's a good reason for them to leave. And at that point, they move on to their own kind of housing without supports. We also have the New Leaf Bakery Cafe. That's a job training program in the culinary arts. And the Women's Hearth, which is a day center for women who are homeless and other women in downtown Spokane on 2nd Avenue between Lincoln and Monroe. And then lastly, we run Educare, which is our child care center. And that's a big reason why I'm here to talk to you today. That is a program targeting primarily families that we serve, families from other homeless service providers. And our focus there is really on trauma. Many of our children have seen domestic violence situations. They've been homeless. They've moved many times. They may have been involved with child welfare and removed from the home. So our focus as staff are really to look at trauma issues with those children and help prepare them to become successful adults in their life. So let me talk a little bit about childcare from the perspective of the personal impacts. I think a lot of times we don't realize how many ways childcare impacts our families. And recently, well, about 2 years now, two years ago, a number of not-for-profits and the Regional Health District conducted a survey of 250 families, mostly targeting low-income folks, to find out what were their issues around childcare. That survey included people from Family Promise, Naomi in the Valley, Vanessa Behan, and Community Minded Enterprise, and the Health District were involved with that, as well as Transitions. We did that, interestingly enough, we entered that because we were concerned about after-hours childcare, because most of the people we serve, when they enter the job force, they're really probably taking a position that might be after hours in a fast food situation, maybe after hours in a hospital setting, hotel kinds of situations. And so our interest at that point was really after hours childcare. What we found was first of all, and I'll share with you later in more specifics that there is none. It's virtually not available. But also that really the issues people had were pretty basic, and it had nothing to do with times of day, but it had to do with some three specific areas. So those were accessibility, a quality of childcare, and then affordability. So those are the three areas I'll talk about from a personal perspective. And I'm going to be quoting from a lot of studies. Department of Commerce put out a recent piece on the cost of childcare. We've just had some information come from the Department of Labor. Actually, the Washington Post just had an article about that in our survey, but there's a number of good sources of information. If anyone is interested in me sending you those, maybe just give me your email in the chat and I'll be glad to do that later. But in terms of accessibility, basically this was around, there just isn't enough. And we know that anecdotally, but what's happened is the Department of Commerce at the state level has been able to quantify that for us. And essentially they've come to the conclusion that there are about 737,000 children in the state of Washington, and they call it who need non-parental care. I love that term. I've never heard that term before, but non-parental care. And of those 737,000, there are 187,000 slots available. So right there, you know that just accessibility is incredibly challenging for almost anybody, but across the state, it's a problem. It's not just a problem here in Spokane County, it's a problem everywhere. Quality is also a major issue. Of course, any of us who look at putting our children into some kind of early learning facility, that's a major concern. But the Department of Commerce reported that 33% could not find nearby care that was of good quality. And you might ask, what does quality mean? Is that a personal interpretation? Certainly that's a part of it, but actually the Early Achievers program in Washington State has really quantified exactly what is a quality kind of childcare. And in fact, you might remember really at the end of last year, beginning of this year, a lot of childcare centers were bemoaning the fact that they had to go through this early achiever ranking. But what it has done is clearly said what's quality childcare and what are the expectations. And what we know is parents just can't, they're unable to find that, especially close to either their workplace or home. Lastly, we found that for families, affordability was a huge issue. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us. We know this, but the Women Helping Women Foundation recently also did a study of women's issues. And one of the things they found was a family with an infant and a preschooler who need childcare are going to pay at least $1,500 a month. I'm going to say that again, $1,500 a month. It's like a house payment or a house payment and a car payment, but it's a lot. So affordability is a major issue for many of our families. And so affordability, quality, and accessibility. And I also want to reiterate, I'm not just talking about people who are making minimum wage. I'm talking about all of us. It's difficult for all of us. There's also a piece that's a child impact about inability to access childcare issues. So we know that early learning really prepares kiddos for kindergarten and for school. But what we know from the Spokane Public Schools is 70% of the children in Spokane County enter kindergarten unprepared. So early learning could really respond to that, but most of our kids, I mean, that's a huge number. 70% of children in Spokane County enter kindergarten unprepared. That has a longitudinal effect then on families and kiddos, and we know that if they're already falling behind before they go into kindergarten, if they haven't increased that access and understanding by the time they're in third grade, especially around reading, they've already fallen behind, and ultimately that will impact their high school achievement and graduation. And many of us know we've done in Spokane County some really good work on focusing on graduation rates, but we also know we need to be looking at much earlier than that. So for many families then, the child impact is huge. If they're not prepared for kindergarten, it may take them many years to really catch up. Lastly, just from a personal perspective, there's also a challenge for a business model. What we know in early learning centers is it's hard to keep people because we don't pay very much. The hours are usually crazy and families come and go. And so it's really hard to maintain a business. with a certain amount of income from families that are paying. So just running a childcare center or early learning center is very challenging. And in fact, with COVID, you're seeing a lot of those centers closing, no longer available because families aren't working, so they're not sending their children to childcare programs. Okay, let me shift and talk a little bit about really why I'm here, and that is, what are the childcare issues that impact businesses in our community? And I'm going to talk about several different areas. The first one is your employee pool. So we know that if somebody doesn't have available childcare, then they can't be out working. And even if, again, the after hours issue impacts them as well. So in the Department of Commerce identified that 20% of people being offered a job or being offered a promotion turned it down due to childcare issues. So 20% turned down a promotion or a job offer due to childcare issues. That could be all those issues I mentioned earlier: accessibility, quality, affordability, but nevertheless, they made a decision that they couldn't do it. It also might be maybe the promotion was increased responsibility, maybe the job was after hours, and so all those things impacted their decision. But right away, you know that then you have less of a pool. You might have a good candidate, but that person, because of external circumstances, chooses not to take the position or not be promoted. 27% of parents quit their job or left school due to childcare issues. So that's another Department of Commerce stat. Most of these are from the Department of Commerce, by the way. But so they quit their job or left school, 27%. So that's a huge number there. And then 9% of Washington parents were fired or let go due to childcare issues. So maybe the child was sick. Maybe they had to attend some kind of activity for the child, but they didn't have available care and that therefore could not come to work. So 9% of Washington parents were fired or let go due to childcare issues. The cost of all this is sort of staggering to me. $2.08 billion is the estimated cost for you all, really, and other businesses in terms of turnover and missed work due to childcare issues. So it has an economic impact on all of us. And you all know, if you've gone through the interviewing process and offer a position to somebody, you know you've already spent a lot of time in job description development, in interviewing questions, in your time, and then to have that not be fulfilled is really very frustrating, but also expensive. I thought this is very interesting. This is a new stat that just came out from the Federal Labor Department. So and this is a COVID-specific stat, only 39% of the women who have left the workforce during COVID have returned to the workplace. So that means 60% who left haven't returned. That's a huge number. And I know that this article, really the spokesman just recently covered this report as well. This number also indicates that they're at home tending their children, but we know in Spokane, many people they're just not going to be able to return to work, even though the position might be available to them. And then lastly, just another data piece about employee pool and availability is 50% of employees found no child care openings near their home or work. Not even the quality was an issue, it was just availability of openings. So there's also that issue, and I've already alluded to it, but about flexible hours. If you're a retail store and you are open till 8 or open till 9, the availability to have family or an employee who can actually work and have childcare is almost impossible. So shift workers are unable to access any kind of care. There's just not the availability. And that's not just here, it's across the state and across the country. And there is really virtually no after hours care we found that in our study from the families. We talked to about 250 families and they all said there just wasn't availability. So let me give you some solutions, at least some things that I'm seeing that might be responsive. And one of the reasons that I was happy to do this presentation when Kevin asked me is you might look, if you're thinking about, well, what can we do? Providence has taken an interesting tact. They actually, through their HR department, have identified funding for vouchers for their employees. And they've also contracted with an agency that helps identify nannies and tutors for those families. So Providence has taken a really big leap forward and being creative about, they've got 24/7 facilities, so they've got to be able to be responsive. So I think that's an interesting piece. That's the only one I've seen like that in Spokane. There's also, I guess I'd encourage you all to think about this as a possibility, is there's no reason for businesses, and I think in particular about downtown businesses, for them not to come together in a kind of collaborative and have a childcare center together for their employees. I think that probably sounds really scary to people, like, oh my gosh, childcare is complex and expensive and all that. But it could be as simple as you actually providing a space for people, maybe offering to do tenant improvements, but then a childcare center would be there for your employees. And there are businesses in town that would take on that challenge who provide early learning facilities already, that I can help connect you to if you're interested. But I do think that's kind of a wave of the future, is starting to look at how can we collaboratively create these spaces and targeted just to your employees. Lastly, and this is kind of a long-term advocacy piece, is can we eventually identify some kind of tax incentives, in-kind donation deductions, or some kind of a B&O tax deduction or a write-off on taxes if an employer offers childcare to their employees. So that's another option for people to consider. I think that's an advocacy issue that's a long time. We're going to need to do some serious work on that, but it's potential. Lastly, I just wanted to share with you a couple of resources. One is I serve on the bid of the Spokane Downtown's Partnership, and they now have on their website a survey for businesses to take about childcare. Again, that's been kind of an effort between myself and some other agencies and the Regional Health District, but the Downtown Partnership was willing to put that on their website and submit it to their ratepayers and members. So go to that site if you get a chance, and I'd also encourage you to have your employees take that. It's just helping us identify what are the issues and how could the bid or other organizations respond. And then lastly, I'm going to try to share my screen. I wanted to show you this site. So Community Minded Enterprises is a local not-for-profit. They are the ones that manage something called Childcare Aware. And so you just go to their site and you scroll down. You see lots of other things, but you'll see under menu, you go to Childcare Aware of Eastern Washington. And I think this is a really fascinating site. I love it. But basically, if you have a family that's struggling with finding childcare, or a mom or a dad, you can go to the site. And I'm going to put some, so they find trusted childcare nearby. I just think this is really great. I'm going to put my information in. Let's say January of 2021. And then I have a grandson that is 2.5, so I'm going to use his birth date. Oh, no, that's right. what year was he born? Okay, and I'm going to do a search. So this is specific to me, where I live. And it comes up with all these providers, 25 providers within 3.72 miles. I just think it's amazing. So then you can look at all these sites. You can click on each of these providers, and you'll get more detail. I'll just do one right now, actually. So it tells you schedules, languaging, capacity, those sorts of things. Now, if I can figure out how to get back here, let's see. Yeah. I'm going to do another search because I want you to see just how crazy this is. I'm going to start childcare, say January of next year. Let's see. Oh, I didn't put my, there we go. I'm going to say that I'm going to need after hours childcare. And watch what happens. Let's see. Oh, I'm just going to do pick up after 5. I think it just does this all day long. Because basically there isn't anything in town or in the community or close to me. So when I did this the other day just to check it, I just was shocked that there's really just no availability at all. Okay, so that's my presentation. I hope this was helpful, but I especially wanted you to see that navigation tool through Child Care Aware. I think a lot of people don't know about that availability, and it's a really powerful tool. So I'd encourage you to share that with other people. All right, do we have any questions or concerns or things that I didn't think about that you think I should have included?
Edie, I have a question.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, businesses were providing childcare. I can remember the Red Lion had one on site for its employees, and there were several others. And then that pendulum swung and they all went away. So now you're looking at encouraging the pendulum to swing back that way again for employees?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I know a little bit about the Red Lion. I know Don Barbieri, that was kind of a baby of his, no pun intended, but just that he felt very strongly that they needed to be able to provide that. And I think when he left, that philosophy and that value just shifted. I don't think a lot of businesses were doing it even then, but there were a few. But yes, certainly that would be a critical kind of support for employees. And imagine if you knew that where your child was, maybe you could visit them during the school day. Maybe if you were nursing, you could visit them. I mean, all those are real pluses, both for the benefit and the peace of mind of the parent, and then the security for the child.
I will share a benefit because my grandkids went there. That's how I know about it. But it really elevated the mood of the employees, not just the parent employees, but the other employees, when they saw children on the site and they'd be outside laughing and playing. And then most of them, it just kind of brightened their day. They could just look out and just kind of watch them. So that was beneficial. But I'm in healthcare, assisted living, 24/7. And the challenge of if my employee calls in at 4 o'clock for non-traditional childcare hours because his brother or a relative's watching him and there's some challenge, it has a real domino effect on the employer just providing something, but often it kicks us into overtime for the other employee that comes in. And that's not really budgeted much when you have within profit margin. So that would be something. So what would be the partnership with DSHS? Because they do the licensing, and I found that to be challenging.
Yeah, they, one of the things Community-Minded Enterprises does is they actually have consultants. Like we have a consultant from them that comes every week and helps us make sure that there's a lot of good work on how the teachers, the kind of languaging the teachers have with the children, cultural issues, making sure that books reflect the different cultures in the United States or wherever in the world. So they're very picky about what's there. So they provide that kind of support. And really, the early achiever process that the Department of Child, Youth, and Families just went through, there's a lot of support to work through that. We had that. We were new to that ranking, but so I think at the front end does sound ominous, but plenty of help out there, and I just find Community-Minded Enterprises to be a wonderful organization. They've just been invaluable to us.
They have been a resource during COVID because they were funded significantly with CARES dollars to support those. So what happened to the STARS program? Was Early Achievers replace STARS?
No, STARS is really the training. Okay. So you have to do training hours to be eligible to be a teacher. In fact, now you have to have I think you have to have an AA. It might even be higher than that. But so STARS is a way of getting that training. Like I even, as a director of a not-for-profit that had a childcare, I had to do some STARS training. But Early Achievers was really quantifying what's quality in childcare, and let me give you an example, like to the nth degree, the size of the mulch that goes under the playground equipment is defined in that early achievers ranking. And you know, the kind of food and the way you serve the food, again, the kind of literature and the kind of art, you have to have 75% of the art in the child care center or early learning center has to be from the children. So there's all these very specific rules. They're all great. It's a little overwhelming, but again, there's supports to try to make that happen. Good questions. Thanks. Anybody else have questions? Kelly, it's good to see your name.
It's always nice to hear you speak. I love the idea of a collaborative child care center downtown. You know, I know that's still been something that's an issue for working parents at the bank, even though we're all at home. So, you know, having that resource available, which is a great idea.
Yeah. Well, maybe Washington Trust will
Maybe. I will put that bug in someone's ear, so.
All right. Put a toe in the water.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you for being on. Monica, do you have anything specific that you want to ask? No? Oh, there you go.
Sorry, did you ask me, Edie?
Yeah, do you have anything specific you want to ask?
I'm the executive director of Blueprint.
I'm sorry, you were kind of.
And we run the community building children. Oh, sorry. I am the executive director of Blueprints for Learning.
Oh, okay.
The community building children's center. Also have done in the past STARS training, and so we've been at this for 20 years, both training staff and running a child care center. And as you suggest, the on-site child care is a great model. Ours is somewhat on-site in that we serve in a priority fashion people who work in the community and Saranac buildings. Interested in expanding our capacity.
Can I ask you to take off your video maybe that way, because your internet is intermittent. There you go. Let's try it again.
Okay. My board is interested in increasing our capacity in providing childcare services, and one of the models that we talk about a lot is really similar to what you propose to business owners in serving employees on site if there's space available in the building or near their work building.
Sure.
So if there are business owners on this call who want to talk about providing those services and contracting with an existing childcare program in order to do that, or at least just to learn about what that would involve, I would be more than happy to have those conversations and talk about that, what that looks like, especially because now we have about 50% of childcare centers have closed in Spokane County. So the access we had wasn't enough, and it's certainly not enough anymore.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Well, thank you for putting that offer out there, and I've written your name down, and I know a little bit about your center, so that's great to know that you're interested. I do think that's something that if we can provide that kind of support to businesses, they might be more willing to jump in the water. It is kind of a huge undertaking, at least it feels like it. And if you've got somebody who already knows the ropes, you know, then it's worth trying, I think.
There are a lot of models for it around the country also. So it's not a unique idea. It's well tested. And to Betsy's point about having kids visible and what that does for the mood and morale of other people, that was one of the intentions of the child care center being where it is in this building. The courtyard is open. If you have an office in the building, you're looking over the play yard. And that was really important to the building owner in the redevelopment process, that children were visible and part of the community. So yeah,
that's great to know.
Make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really great to know. All right, any other questions? Well, thank you for your interest and questions. And it's a real children's heart, and it's because but my husband was a pastor. I was in social services, and there was no way we could afford both of them in childcare. So I have a really impassioned kind of feeling about the necessity to make this happen, and it will help people like people that we serve actually be able to improve their lives. And you don't just get a job. You have to have transportation, and you have to have clothing, and you have to have childcare, and all those things. And so if we can really be responsive, I think we can also really change the community for the better. So thanks so much. I'm going to hand it off to Kevin.
Yeah, well, thank you, Edie. This has been very insightful, very helpful. Thank you to Councilmember Wilkerson and everyone else who engaged with you today. Yes, as you pointed out, the Child Care Needs Assessment, if anyone is interested in taking that, that helps, in helping inform us some of the issues currently going on, that is available on our website, and you can also send it to anyone else you think might find it useful to help fill out. That is on our website, which is downtownspokane.org. You can also go to that's on the news page to find the link to that survey. And then if you go to the events page, you can also find the recording once we have that up for this session that you can share along to anyone else, as well as look into our upcoming sessions. So in December, we're going to be having Neil Halford, the owner of Treehouse Deliveries, on December 3rd. That is a Thursday. And then on December 17th, on the Thursday, we'll be talking with Cycrest Systems Incorporated, who will be doing a presentation on cybersecurity and some of the best practices for you and your business. So those should be interesting sessions in December. So thank you all for joining again. Edie, special thanks to you. This has been great. We appreciate your time. Yes, applause. And yes, so keep an eye out on our website for the recorded version if you'd like to reference this, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.